When I was in the service, I ran into people that all of a sudden I found this guy really changed me, because we were training and he became my very good friend. He was white-haired. His last name was King, and he was from the South, from Tennessee, I think. Hey, Bernal. Hey, Bernal. Read this letter for me. Come on, Bernal. I says, you want me to read your letter? Who's the letter from? It's from my gal friend. My gal friend. I said, I don't want to read your gal friend's letter. What's the matter with you, King? Read it yourself, you know. He's doggone, Bernal. I says, I can't read. Here I'm seeing a real white boy with yellow hair, something unimaginable for a West Sider like me. And I'm seeing this guy who's a dear friend. We used to buddy around, and he was funny and so on. But I didn't know that he couldn't read. And he wanted me to read his girlfriend's letter, which I did. And I don't remember anything about it, but that to me was somewhat of a motivator, I guess, to say that, hey man, we're not as bad as we thought we were, you know? Just because we were brown skinned, or because we grew up on the West Side, or because we went to Lanier, or because we went to La Edgewood, or because we went to La Crockett, or Lanier, the kids used to call it Lanier because they didn't want to speak Spanish. That you would imagine that there's something wrong with you, and of course, historically, it was a put down on our culture and our language and our background. And all of that was involved, I think, in motivating me to say, I'm going to break those barriers personally, and the sooner the better. Spanish was not allowed in the schools as a practice. There was a no Spanish rule. And that went back to the Germans, when the Germans fought the United States in World War I, and started there. And there was a lot of hatred towards the Germans at that time, and then later on in World War II. But that transferred into the same feelings about Mexicanos, Mexicano children, barrio children, that they didn't want anything of their culture or their language in the schools. And to me, to overcome something like that was going to be major. When I ended up in the legislature, because of all of that, because of the fact that there was a disrespect for our culture and a disrespect for our language, and I often wondered why it was that people would change their names, for example. Instead of Jose Maria, which is my baptismal name, I ended up Joe, and very happy about it. You know, because the teachers were very happy with just calling you Joe, because they thought it was odd for them to be calling you Jose Maria. You're not a girl. One of the teachers told me. I said, fine, I'll take Joe. Anyway, when I was in the legislature, I had an opportunity to change some of that by being the main author in the Senate to develop a bilingual program for the children in the state of Texas. And to me, that related back to what I was seeing in the schools. And now that I was in the legislature, something that I still talk about and still honor is that all my life I had been a believer in the law. And you follow the law is there, you follow it, and you ask very few questions. Most of our people are that way. Good people are that way. They follow the law and so on. Well, I had an opportunity as a member of the legislature to change the law. And that was a fantastic mental condition that happened to me personally, that all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I spent 8 years, 2 in the House and 6 in the Senate, where I had an opportunity to change some of the things that I didn't like because of my experiences back home. And bilingual education was one of them, a major one. Being the author of it, and the fact that all of a sudden being able to speak Spanish, nobody could put you down for it. Your culture, your parents' culture, that you didn't have to hate your grandmother and your mother and your dad for not for not speaking to you in English, but for speaking to you in Spanish, and I had all this hard time in school. That went out, and I think we're so much the better for it. That really wants to do good morally, and because you believe in your community. As you grew up, you loved your community, you loved your neighbors, and you go through the schools in your community. I think all of that kind of piles up to say, well, I want to give back. And community service to me is when you give back. And I think people that had a good time, thoughtful times, when they had several mind changers or life changers, I was thinking that I was going to do this, and you talked to me, and I started thinking about other things that I could become. That kind of thing. That's, to me, the important thing. We remember who our good teachers were, because we still remember their names and what they did for us. That's when you become a game changer, when students can remember, yeah, I remember when I had you and you did this and that and the other, and they start reminding you of all the good things that you did. You're changing lives because you impressed them so that maybe some other ideas that they had did change at that time. You'll never know. But at my age, I've had many of them come back and to tell me, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed having you as a teacher because I remember you did this and that and the other, and it made me think about many other things that I could become. I was at Emma Fry for 5 years, right? And I had a lot of fun. I said earlier that somewhere between Burleson and Emma Fry, I had decided that that was going to be my life's calling. We didn't have a mascot for the school. We had the name Emma Fry, F-R-E-Y. So I gathered some of my top students. They just happened to be all girls. And I said, stay for lunch with me, and I'm going to pay for your lunch. But after everybody leaves, I want you to stay there and ask your teacher. I'll ask your teachers to let me have you for about half an hour. So we met in the cafeteria, and I said, by the way, and they were all top students. They just happened to be girls. I should have had a boy or two. There were 6 of them. And I said, we don't have a mascot. And I was asking you to come together with me so that you could give me an idea of what we ought to have as a mascot. We ought to have a mascot. Anyway, it came from bulldogs to hogs to to roosters to whatever, rattlers, you name it. They named I don't know how many animals. And this little girl that never said anything, she said, can I speak? I said, well, I asked you to come. I would hope that you'd speak. He said, well, I have a suggestion. And she says, I want to call our school Chickens. And they all turned to her and I said, chickens? What do you mean chickens? He says, yeah, Emma fried chickens. That's my joke of the day. So I approached one of the important persons in Austin to help me with the idea of putting together a bill to change that and to change the requirement that you have to be a citizen. And I said, what do you want to do? He said, well, can you change the requirement? Because other states, I found out, other states were doing it, had done it. Instead of requiring citizenship, they would require a period of residence, like 25 years or 20, before you could apply in that particular state. I said, well, can we change it to 20 or 25 years? He said, yeah. It'd probably be better starting at 25, and later on you can change it to 20. And the guy looked at me. It was a welfare director for the state. Like, and you think that you got a chance to pass something like this? I said, I don't know, but I don't have too many bills to run. I had another minor one. I'm willing to spend all my time on this one because I really believe that we need that kind of a change. Well, I found out in the process that it didn't require 50% vote. It required 2/3 because I was changing, and I didn't realize it. I was changing the Constitution of Texas. It was in the Constitution. The people had to vote for it. And see, you think that you can pass a constitutional amendment in the House, in the Senate, and then have the people go out and vote for it? You think that they're going to vote on something like this? And I says, well, I really don't know, but you don't either. And he was kind of getting after me like, what the hell is wrong with you? Something's wrong with you. And I said, I want to give it a try. So I did. I sat with members that I didn't even know ever. He said, I've got a bill here and I want to, if you can listen to me for about 3 or 4 minutes, I'd like to explain it. I went from member to member, not all of them, because there's 150 in the House, so I couldn't have possibly sat with all of them. But I found out something about Texas at that time, that there were a lot of Germans, Polish people, Czech people that were in the same situation as some of our people. They had moved into Texas from their country and they had never become citizens because they couldn't speak English. So all of a sudden I was finding support. So it says, can you get 2/3, 100 votes in the House out of 150? In the Senate, do you have somebody from the Senate to run with it? I says, I don't know, but I'll find somebody. You have to have 21 out of 30, out of 31, you're gonna have to have 21 votes. I give it, we did it, we did it. But I found that composition of Texas, that people could relate to that, and they said, yeah, we'll help you. And then after that, after it passed, then it went into the public for a vote. It was going to be voted in November of that year, and I started working with editorial newspapers to get endorsed editorially by the newspapers. Anyway, make a long story short, it passed. So I thought I had grown to about 10 feet tall with that piece of legislation because I changed the Constitution of the state of Texas. And you know, try that sometime. 2/3, 100 votes out of 150, and then the Senate 21 out. And I didn't know any senators, hardly. Chick Kazin, who I asked him to run for it with me, and he did. Chick Kazin from Laredo. And then I found out, like I said, about what other ethnic groups in Texas felt. They felt the same way.